Once again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for logging in this morning and dialing in. Before we get started, continuing where we were last week, any questions or comments or statements based on some of the things that were covered last weekend and Monday? Anyone have any questions or comments or anything to add before we get going on the recap? Okay. Um, One of the good things about last week that I really enjoyed and just really kind of excited me early on was just some of the early comments that were made were things that we had discussed previous lessons, but there were also some things that I was kind of wrestling with and trying to see where they fit in the lesson and just kind of right at the beginning last week with George and Ron, uh, Kathy, those early statements just kind of really confirm, that we were supposed to be in that lesson at that time and place. And we talked about coincidences and patterns as signs and things that we should notice and really pay attention to, and that there really aren't no coincidences. And then we also continued on about creating and shaping, and we looked at things from a couple of different perspectives, and we had a couple of really powerful stories that really just that validated what we're talking about, and validated that we are who we say we are, and how these things kind of impact us every day. And the more and more I dig into this lesson, you just realize that we're actually just our life is actually just living this thing out, and that we're having to walk and talk and do this every day. And it's just a different demeanor. It's just different how it comes across, and how I know how I feel, and how I try to treat people and react to certain things that happen with me, whether it's work, home, or friends or people you interact with. So I thought we really hit the nail on that last week, and just how we deal with things that go on in our environment. And then once again, we sort of brought it back to really just understanding the power and the role and the effect that meditation and how that the symbiosis, how those things kind of really affect us, how that balance really, you know, helps us go on throughout the day, throughout the week. Because I think it was Kathy that talked about it too, that, I mentioned just the 5 minutes, but really that 5 minutes is really just the start of it. And from there, that alignment just kind of takes me and guides me and keeps me focused and on task, and reminds me of who I am throughout the rest of the day, the rest of the week, however long in between. But we're always sort of we're in a constant state of meditation. We may move from a standpoint of aligning our thoughts and really in a focus where we're just kind of sitting still physically, and that stuff aligned, but we're also, the way our minds and our thoughts carry us throughout the day, we're also just sort of in a constant state of meditation. We're in a constant state of just being in these things that come across our path. We begin to realize there are no coincidences. There are no necessarily patterns. And then we really talked about times of day that we noticed, and I think everyone kind of felt like there was a particular time of day that they were either up, awake, or they noticed a certain time on the clock constantly, and just some of the significance of that, and how we can really actually dig deeper into that, and sort of empty ourselves, and let more of that revelation knowledge, let more of the insight be deposited in us. So I try to be conscious this week too of just when that happened to me, and just instead of trying to go against it, just really embrace it, and sort of let myself flow. If I was up at a certain time, I really tried to make sure that there was just silence around me, and I just kind of just sat there or laid there and just kind of focused and just breathed. And so we talked about really embracing those things last week, and I hope everyone, sort of, could relate to it or had an experience of it. I know several people spoke about it. Any questions or comments so far on that before we get going forward?
I don't particularly have anything on that. However, I would like to acknowledge some things that are happening, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
I think every now and then we need to look at where we are in relationship to what our desires are and have been for quite some time. I make it a point when I feel it to listen at the news, and that helps me to gauge where we are in terms of our desires. I was listening this morning, and one of the major things that I heard was something that may prove to be insignificant to other people who may have heard the same thing. I heard about the great movement by young people to change the labor market. And the way they are doing it is by unionizing. The Starbucks, Amazon, Apple, and some of the other companies in particular are mobilizing. Are unionizing. And this movement is not coming from unions. It's coming from the young people who work in these particular industries, which means that they are not being manipulated and controlled by groups. Well, like the unions were of the past, like the mafia controlled some of the unions in the past, and the old white men who wanted to keep the status quo manipulated unions as well. The guy who organized Amazon was said to have been by the attorneys at Amazon, was said to be inarticulate and unintelligent. Yet he beat all of them when it came to organize the union in New York. So what am I saying to us today? That the labor market is shifting beneath our feet. Even though salaries are going up, representation is changing. The pandemic is the reason for this union shift. The picture that was shown is that the people at the top were getting wealthier and the ones at the bottom were not. So now this movement is from the bottom up. And with that happening, the concern now is that these unions are going to force the industries to pay them a living salary, and they're going to force them to reduce all the perks that CEOs are getting, with them getting none. That may seem like just a political / labor market change. It is not. This change is deeper than a salary. This change speaks to the idea of quote unquote justice in the labor market. And when justice in the labor market began to take place, then what we began to see is equality in terms of the way people are treated across. That, coupled with some of the other things that are coming into play within the next 6 months, we are going to see a major change take place. Now, when I say see it, it's already here. We're going to see it with our eyes as opposed to seeing with our eye. However, in order to see it with our eyes, we must embrace it with our eyes first. This does not come without cost. And most of us on this line know that we have been paying a price, but maybe not understanding the reason. We are not paying a price because we have done something wrong. Neither are we paying a price because the negative or the energy is pushing us back. And we're paying a price because energy is resistant to change. We talk about people being resistant to change. It is the energy that's resistant to change. It has been what it is for so long until changing it takes more effort. And in changing it, that same energy that's resistant to change begins to make every attempt to invade our peace or our energy forces, to force it to fall in line with the status quo. When that does not happen, there are so many different things that take place in our lives that are designed to distract us from where we are and where we're headed, to distract us from what we see with our eye, and also to push us to a place where we feel like there is no use in continuing the battle because all we are getting from it is pain. Well, if there is no pain, there is no gain. We are going through these things now. The things that we are facing, in many cases, are horrific, but in all cases, they are heavy burdens to bear. I prefer looking at it as being a weight that has been cast upon us for the purpose of strengthening us, rather than looking at it as an unwanted burden. So we are at a very good place, and we are closer to the light of change than we have ever been. And I say that in order to encourage you to continue the journey, which I know you will, but more importantly, to what is considered a burden more as an opportunity. Would you mute your phone, please? Look at it as an opportunity rather than seeing it as a burden. And when we see things as opportunities are very positive things for us if we embrace it that way. If we see them as a burden, the negativity that has been associated with burdens in the past will sometimes weaken our resolve. And this is not a time for that to happen. So rather than seeing it as a burden, please see it as an opportunity of strength. Thank you. Unless there are questions or comments. Thank you. Yes, I just want to make that observation.
No, thank you. And when you were talking, and I don't know why this was popping in my head exactly, but I was just thinking, like, you know how we feel like sometimes we're humming along and we have to take a step back, and we use that phrase, we use that, and this sort of based on what you just said. There is no step back, and we shouldn't be looking at us always trying to get ahead. But when things like that happen, like you just said, when energy needs to be changed, or when things are different or seem difficult, it's really that it's just exposing things for us to expand. And so I don't know if that makes sense to you, but instead of us always viewing that we have to always be headed forward, maybe sometimes the visual should be us expanding and just becoming a wider reach, because there is really no such thing as a step back. It's just things that are shown to us to help us expand. Is sort of what I was getting from what you just said overall with everything that's going on. And so the struggle is really just it's just the expansion. We're not.
Yes, it is this. And what I'm talking about is more than what we are seeing around us. I'm talking about the things that are affecting us personally. I'm talking about I'm not I'm talking about the things that and I use this very loosely, that the individual people, us as individuals, are having to deal with on a personal level. And if we really look at it, the things that are presenting themselves as individual problems are actually collective assets. They look to be individual, but they are indeed collective. And the reason I say it that way is because, excuse me, is because if last week Kathy was talking about some things that are affecting her. Well, if those things are affecting her as an individually, then they are it to us collectively. Because what she deals with, or what any one of us for that matter, do, in terms of the struggles that are being presented to us, when we breathe for each other, when we recognize that we are one, then then we deal with it as a collective. So the energy wants us to see it as an individual thing. So I will have to deal with my issue, and you deal with yours. But when I look at what's happening, and you are breathing, you are helping me to be strengthened to face what I have to face, and I am doing the same for you, then that makes it collective. And when we see it that way, what happens is, as a collective, we're able to not rise above it, not to defeat it. We're able to embrace it and repurpose that energy that brought it into existence, so that now, as a collective, we can expand that concept and begin to repurpose the energy that has been an adversary to humanity for so long. That's pretty much what I'm looking at, not so much all of what's in the news, but what's in our lives individually. Thank you.
Yes, this is Barbara. Good morning. What you and Pastor have been talking about. When you said expand, S, I got out of that the sense of what Pastor was talking about. Instead of seeing the struggle as I'm not getting anywhere, the expansion is sort of horizontal, touching others instead of just feeling by myself. It is that very touching of others, the collective, and which means then that it's not up to me by myself to do things by myself, but it is the collective consciousness of those who are Elohim that helps to push me along in a sense when I need that. If that's not what you meant by expand, could you talk about that a little bit more, please?
No, that's what I was seeing too. I mean, like when he was saying that, we always think of ourselves as the individuals, is that we're always trying to get ahead and forge ahead and get to a certain point in this thing we call a race. But if we're truly Elohim, then we are where we're at. And so that expansion, instead of like trying to to get ahead, I see it as like, we're expanding our reach outward. And that, as you go out, you're moving forward together, or you're just going out. And when you're going out, you're just reaching more people. Like you said, horizontally, if you're trying to go forward in a straight line, like they always say, the quickest way from point A to point B is a straight line. But what if we are where we're supposed to be? And so that expansion needs to go out to incorporate more and to symbolize that connection with humanity. And that's basically what the social media does now, because the relationships and the communications that are making things like what Pastor said possible and make them happen so much quicker. It's sort of a reaching out, bringing people together at the same time. And so I sort of saw that expansion as horizontal, because if you're trying to go ahead, the way I was looking at it, and something impedes your progress, you're trying to wrestle with that. But if we're just constantly going out, then you're just dealing with everything with that expansion. It gets embraced. It's almost like a big hug. It gets embraced. You're just going out instead of just trying to step forward, or having that analogy of stepping forward to one challenge after the next. If we just realize we're Elohim and who we are, where our 2 feet are planted, and just reach out. And I just saw that horizontal expansion also. I think sometimes we try to move with the problem, and we end up moving like they say, moving the target, instead of just being where we're at. Did that kind of make sense to you, Barbara?
Yes, it does.
And it's going back to what we looked at, what we've been talking about so much. It just kind of fits. It's just when we talk about the intuition, we talk about this eighth sense, even from a personal standpoint. Like just right then in that moment, I just made sort of a declaration to myself that I'm not going to view anything as a step back anymore. I'm going to view it as something that's exposed to me, and my desire is just to expand, because it's not really gonna affect me. I deal with it as it comes to me instead of me going to it to try and handle it. So I'm not going to view anything as a step back or an impediment. More so, it's just me expanding and repurposing it and trying to deal with it in that regard too. Because I think personally, if you you hear people say it all the time. They had a bad week, or this was a rough week, or whatever. Was the week really rough, or were we just seeing things a different way that came at us, and we just allowed it to shift us instead of just continuing to expand, continuing to be ourselves, and making that reach wider, and and things don't get around that long wall. But from a spiritual standpoint, no week is rough, because it's just there to strengthen us. It's just there to expose things that we are unaware of. It's all like seeing out of peripheral. Like we can have tunnel vision, but the reality is that we just need to expand our vision too. So the more we see, the more that we get exposed to, the more that's there. It's just more awareness that's brought to us. But if we get the tunnel vision and you get locked in, you only see what's exactly in front of us. Are we able to be more aware of what's going on? And I think so. When we tie in the things we have in this lesson now, our vision, moves from tunnel vision to more peripheral and a full vision of what we're seeing. So I think even with expanding, that word expanding, we're expanding our vision and awareness too, because we see more, and we see more spiritually. We feel more, like Pastor said this morning. It seemed like it was something that may have been small or a sign that could have been missed, but because of where we are, where we're at, it wasn't something that was missed, and he could actually see more of a peripheral vision. But we looked at all the things we talked about in the past. Religion gives us tunnel vision, and we're supposed to focus on one thing, and now we're expanding that awareness, we're expanding that vision, and the more that we bring into our peripheral, the more we're aware of what we need to deal with, and the energy that we need to move around, and when we're what we're supposed to be at that point. But if we're this tunnel vision, we miss a lot of things that are right there, around us. Any questions or comments on that?
That was helpful to me, because what you just said, I've had some things that have occurred, and it was almost like a mountain being built up. It's that stuckness that you talked about. I felt like I was getting stuck again, stuck, one thing after the other. But when Pastor talked about the collective, that we are all in this together, we breathe for each other and we support each other. And then when you talked about expanding, meaning I can't just see what's just in front of me, which keeps me stuck. But when I expand my vision, it helps me see the bigger picture, and perhaps what's happening in terms of this perceived struggle or this perceived challenge is not there to cause me to be stuck. It is to point me to something larger. And so I appreciate the discussion about it so far this morning.
Yeah, you just kind of helped me answer a problem or a question I had for myself, and this, some things came up this week, and I was like, okay, I've got to take a trip for work this week, and so I was steadily trying to get some things done today and yesterday and tomorrow before going to San Diego, and it just dawned on me, it's like, I'm trying to get a lot done, but I feel like I'm stepping back, and then other people are coming at me and needing different things, or just the regular day. And so I said, oh man, that's forced me to take a step back. But then I just realized what you said, like, I've got people that I know and trust, and I need to kind of like bring more of them in, and things will kind of take care of itself, and so I just started as like, okay, I'm not only expanding, but I sort of need that help, and so I need to kind of like ask for it and get them to and just bring them in to do it, instead of me trying to take a step back or trying to figure out how to do it in this little narrow lane. I want to just expand and just use the resources I have around me, and so that's what we are for each other too, spiritually as well. Like we are a resource for each other, like Pastor said earlier. And so that even just helped me right there, Barbara. Just like, yeah, I'm beating my head against the wall, but there's a quick solution. I just need to kind of reach out. And so I appreciate it. Anyone else have any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, suppose that the things that we are dealing with, and I know that they're in different areas, because I don't know anyone who is dealing with things that I'm dealing with, and some of the other people that I'm privy to knowing what they're dealing with is different. I suppose all of these areas that we are having to repurpose the energy that's been thrown at us. Suppose all of these areas are extensions of what's happening in this society, this global society. And when we become one with each other's struggles, then what we are actually doing by extension is bringing some sense of solace or some sense of closure to our energies that are creating the problems around the world. What I'm saying is that the reason all of them are personal. However, they're personal in a different way. And let me give you an example. One of the things that I have been facing, I've never faced in my life, is what Phoebe is dealing with in terms of the leukemia. And right now, because all of us have been dealing with that as one unit, I see a huge change. Not just I, but also the medical team that has been diligent in taking care of her. They are shocked as well to see the amount of progress that has been made in this period of time, and they are also amazed at how she has responded to different treatments differently than the people that they're accustomed to treating. So suppose this is happening in this regard because we have to deal with the health of humanity, but at the same time, be able to gain strength from the very thing that would have in ordinary times beset us or become a devastating burden for us. Suppose that's by extension, that's dealing with the health of the body that Elohim occupies globally. Suppose those things that are happening to others also by extension deals with the different struggles that families are dealing with, that people are dealing with, the financial struggles, that the social issues, all of these issues that are being faced by us individually and collectively are a representation of Elohim, one yet many. And in doing that, it is laying a foundation for us to build upon for the benefit of humanity in every aspect of life that humanity has to traverse in this physical world. Does that make sense? Or can you see that? Or are there questions or comments about that?
No, I see it. I see that. I still see that expansion, and that kind of like it takes everything with it. You know, each thing is sort of separate, but it's also a part of the. You know, it's sort of a part of the fabric of it. Is, you know, it's maybe in one section for one person something else, but it's still together. That you know, energy and electricity, it needs that line to travel. So it may be you know, different current. One thing will serve a different purpose, but it's still the same energy that has to do what it's got to do.
Yeah. I see the struggle I'm dealing with, or that we are dealing with collectively, that in regards to what I face is maybe the hand or the foot, and the one that Barbara or someone else is dealing with is the arm. So it's part of the body of issues that has been used to control, manipulate, devastate humanity. Now, I also believe that regardless of what it is, it has been orchestrated by the universe from the foundation of the world. I do believe that every struggle that we face was purposely put in our pathway for us to overcome it, because in order to overcome it, we have to create a pathway to overcome it. We have to embrace the power, the inherent power that we were created with in order to overcome it. And by doing that, we are not the Elohim that we are. We are Elohim, period. And being Elohim, period, we are obligated to be creators. We cannot be Elohim without being creators. And what we are creating is a clear pathway for humanity to see that it in totality is Elohim, regardless of whether they're in India or Indiana. They are Elohim. It doesn't matter whether they are the leader of or the perpetuator of white supremacy or white superiority, or whether they are all embracing of everything in this earth for the benefit of humanity. It is the same Elohim. These energies that are there are there for a substance for us to use in order to create. And when we rail against these things that we disagree with, that we see, that we don't like, then what we are actually doing is giving them the strength to remain as they are. However, when we embrace them and understand that these are energy sources of a substance for creating something for the benefit of humanity, then it goes into a totally different direction, and it becomes a source of stability for the creative, for our creative power to bring into existence what was supposed to be brought into existence by man, by the Adam from the beginning. Does that make sense? And I'm not, when I ask you, does that make sense? Or if I ask you, and you see that, of course I'm speaking to S, but not only to him, but to everyone on this line. So if there are comments or questions, please raise them. Thank you.
This is Barbara. I think that was a very powerful statement, a reminder to me that these energy sources are out there, and they're there for the purpose of us as the creator to repurpose them, to use it as the building block for creating that environment of harmony and balance. And so even the energy that seems to come to us in the form of a struggle, or the form of an obstacle, the form of a distraction, is there for us to repurpose that energy and use that as the basis for creating something that is beneficial to all of mankind. So that struck a chord with me very strongly. It resonated very strongly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I definitely see what you're exactly where you're coming from on that. If anyone else has a comment or statement, I definitely see it. And I remember we sort of had the conversation, I guess, around Christmas time, about repurposing energy as well, and but I definitely see where you're coming from on that.
An example that may give some clarity uh, to those on this line, or make it easier for them to actually speak to someone else about it. An example of that is this: the same energy that was brought into existence for the purpose of creating a tree is the same energy that was purposed to create a river. And that energy that created a river is the energy that created the soil or a mountain. So all of the energies are the same. They are just purposed for different things. And when we talk about repurposing, that's what we're talking about. And if you really, really think about it, the energy that created the rivers, that created the trees, all of these energies are within us. We are a combination of all of the natural entities that were brought into existence, be they animals or plants. It doesn't matter. We are a composition of all of that. And the difference between being a composition of all of that is that we, our Elohim, made a distinction. Elohim said, out of everything that has been created, out of all of the living, breathing animals that has been created, there is no other animal, there is no other being like this human being. Being human is being Elohim. And therefore, since there is no other animal that is capable of being as Elohim is, there must be a method brought into existence to reproduce Elohim in the earth. And that method of reproduction is the womb that was brought into being when the feminine energy was formed to give birth to those energy forces that will bring into this natural realm a physical presence of Elohim. This does not mean in any way whatsoever that the feminine energy was secondary. It was just as primary as was the masculine energy. The way that the masculine energy and the feminine energy appear to be primary/secondary is because of the physical body. If we look at it from a physical perspective, all life comes from a womb. And if all life comes from a womb, then the question becomes, what's secondary? Or is there anything in existence that can be called secondary? No, because without the seed and the womb, there's no life. So everything is primary. We are the embodiment of every energy force that has ever been in existence. And that is the reason that we can be the creators of disasters, excuse me, or we can be the repairers of the breach. That is a choice that we have to make. And we have made our choice that we are going to be repairers of the breach. Everything that has been breached by the attitude of selfishness, we are going to bring reparations to it so that it can be repurposed for the benefit of every entity on this earth. It is impossible for us to talk about bringing um, reparation or redemption to humanity without redeeming everything that was created. When we bring balance to humanity, when we become humans, and I'm not just talking about those who know who we are. I'm talking about when we become humans globally. It is at that point that everything else begins to fall into place, begins to see what balance is. The the source of the disruption is this creature called mankind. Therefore, the substance or the source of order has also must also be seen as mankind, recognizing that it is human, and that in itself ends all disruption. And the disruptions of which I speak are things like climate change, the ignorant, arrogant, evil attitudes that men carry, the greed that we experience day in and day out. So, thank you. I'm done for now.
Doesn't it go back to what I guess what we've been studying for the last several weeks? How all these things are us and connected inside of us, and that's why it's important for us to really see the function, to organize the dysfunction, so that we have that clarity and we're able to use our intuition as a tool to help us do that. And when you were saying that, I just looked at all those things, being a tool and a resource that's already built into us. And when we look at how we've been just going back and forth in the lesson, the things that people have revealed, it's really nothing new that we're talking about, but it's just the organization and the alignment of it that's starting to really make sense to us, or at least to me anymore. I mean, because I don't think I'm saying anything new. It's just the way it's being aligned and organized now. It just seems more that the clarity is being there.
Absolutely, yes. I see that.
Morning, I
Yes, sir.
This is George. Pastor Richard, you mentioned about the repairer of the breach, and it made me just reflect a little bit on the prophet Isaiah when he talked about it in the 58th chapter, verse 12. And, the scripture says, "And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. They shall raise up the foundations of many generations, and they shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in." And I'm receiving, as we are receiving the teaching that is not just about the philosophies, that you had mentioned, ST, but I think that we're seeing it from a worldview instead of, just looking at it, from, our own tunnel vision. And what made me just think about today as we, are engaged is that, to be able to appreciate culture, to be able to appreciate what's happening in the world, and not being so just fixed on, what's happening in our own little lane or our own little place where we are, but what is the world revealing to us in a way that we can see it in terms of just healing, our land. So I think the things that have been, talked about in terms of the eight sins, in terms of us being one, that particular scripture has some relevance to me, and I just, wanted to be able to, to share that scripture with everyone. And at some point in time, when it talked about, and they that shall be of thee, when we talk about, you know, operating in our true self, Elohim, then we have the opportunity to be able to, raise up, to build the old waste places and to be able to raise up the foundations. And I think that that's where we are now in terms of giving a pathway where people can at least have a sense of knowing not just who they are, but the power that they have to be able to change the circumstances that we're living in. So I just wanted to share those thoughts and share that scripture. I don't know if anyone have any comments or questions about that, but I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
ST,
Anyone?
well, Pastor, I was just sitting thinking and just thinking about everything that's being said today. I just think that we all are in the receiving mode. That's why it may be a lot of people not just commenting, but I just believe we all are in the receiving mode. We're just receiving what you guys are saying and processing. And I don't know about anybody else, but I really feel liberated and I just feel good today. And I just appreciate everything that's being said and that is being sent out to the universe. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. I I just feel that we are more in tune to the functionality of the eighth sense than we realize. If we were, excuse me, to think about how we approach the things that enter our lives before we start trying to analyze them, I think that what we will see is that it is the eighth sense. It is our being guided by the knowledge of who we are. However, when we stop and sit with it, the question is this: are we pondering how we're going to approach it, or are we getting angry because of it, or are we becoming unsettled because of it? If those things are taking place, then we have reverted to what we were, and that is the animalistic attitude. However, if we look at it and hold on to our initial approach to it, and that is recognizing that something is awry here, and reminding ourselves of who we are, when we sit with it, we are sitting with it because we are searching internally for a solution, as opposed to trying to conjure up a solution based on how our minds have been trained to function in the past. That idea of searching internally for solutions does not always instantly produce a solution, but it does have the impact of giving us the space to embrace who we are, even without a solution, even without even knowing what the way forward looks like, but knowing that it is a way forward, and we are not stagnant in any way, and absolutely nothing has the power to injure us or to destroy us. We've talked about nothing having the power to stop us, but nothing has the power to injure or destroy us. It doesn't. The only way that anything has the power to injure or to destroy us is that we give it that power by way of using our mind, our mindset, in the manner that that we have been taught to use it in the past. That's where the life of that issue, uh, that's where the life of that issue emanates. We are giving it that life. The moment that we embrace it from the understanding of loving kindness, of forgiveness, though all of the principles with which we were created, the moment we approach it from that aspect, it is then that we are not concerned about an immediate solution. Our greater concern is being sure that loving kindness is the thing that embraces and encompasses everything that is. Why? Because love itself covers a multitude of entanglements, not just our entanglements. Love covers the entanglements of others as well. Love becomes the covering for the entanglements that we are faced with. And when love becomes the covering for those entanglements, it is the power of the love that we are that begins to disentangle all of those things that we have that have approached us for the purpose of destroying or for the purpose of injuring. We have taken the power of that desire away from it. And when we do that, that's when the disentanglement takes place. And before we know it, the solution is there. We, during this period, must not allow ourselves to entertain the notion that something even more devastating is going to happen, or the notion that we don't know how we're going to get through this thing. Yes, we do. We know how we're going to get through it because we're already through it. We know that. And the reason we know that is because we know that whatever happens is to show us what is taking place in the world at large, globally, what's taking place. We know that that's what this is. And we know that when love disentangles what we are faced with, it is then that we are experiencing the disentanglement globally of what man has been entangled with throughout the ages. Love is the beginning force that leads us to forgiveness. It leads us to mercy. Love guides us to every aspect of righteousness. Love is the guiding force in our lives when we sit with something for the purpose of hearing what the universe is saying to us. When we sit with something with the purpose of Elohim being the overriding force in the life of the animalistic mindset. Any questions or comments about that?
I guess what you're saying in a roundabout way, the solution is our identity. The solution is who we are.
Right.
It's having clarity around that, and our desires are presented. We present our desires based on who we are, and that's understand the true identity. An example of that is, you can use a sports analogy. You can use an analogy like teams do better when they find out who their identity is. If they try to be something they're not, they struggle. We're not going to take our car to McDonald's being worked on because that's not McDonald's identity. So our solution is always based on who we are and having that clarity. And then that clarity allows us to present our desires based on who we are. And the desires is the things that starts to create or transform the energy wherever we want it to be directed. And so when you were saying that, I was saying the solution is really our identity. It's based on who we are, because in anything in life, if you know who you are while you're in it, you're going to get through it in the way that you're supposed to. You know, a running team is not going to be a passing team. McDonald's isn't going to be a car repair shop. So we get through things based on who we are, and we understand who we are. We're clear on that because that's where our strength is. And so when you were saying that, that's what I was just thinking.
I like it. Those examples are excellent.
And so
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
I was just gonna say we just everything that we're talking about, love, and that's everything that's incorporated in who we are, and it's just we have the resources now, and I think the more and more I look at it, it's the clarity around that, the clarity and understanding that it's just making the solution more clear for us.
Yeah, what came to mind while you were talking is was what Kathy said about sitting with something. What came to my mind about that is this: be still and know that I am. I am who? Be still and know that I am Elohim. I am the Lord. I am who? I am the solution. I am the answer. Be still and know that I am who I was created to be. That sitting with something, again, reminding me of what was said some time ago. Whatever you put behind I am, that's who you are. Sitting with that to remind ourselves that I am the I am that I was created to be. That in itself causes love to bubble up in us, causes mercy to come into sight, and put righteousness in a place where we can bathe in it. And righteousness becomes a robe that covers everything that we are. It becomes a covering for all aspects of our lives, simply because we sit with it and remind ourselves that I am that I am. That, to me, is one of the most powerful things that we can do to benefit humanity. And that is always being reminded of I am who I am. Today, I think it's a day, I know it's a day, where we are being guided by the energies of the universe to stay focused on the I am of our nature, the I am of our being, the I am with which everything that exists was created. This, in turn, keeps our focus on where our desires will lead us, and that is to the freedom of being who we were created to be, separating us from the bondage that religion has upon us, the bondage that told us we were not worthy to be Elohim, meaning we were not worthy to be who we were created to be, separating us from the chains of self-destruction by believing that we have to get even with someone, by believing that we have to seek vengeance on someone, freeing us from the self-destruction of believing that the struggles that we are facing are stronger than we are. And as a result of them being stronger they are destructive. No, focusing on who we are. This day tells us stay where we are in terms of our focus. Know that we are not destructors. We do not destroy anything. We are not here to destroy racism. We are here to repurpose that energy. We are not here to destroy anything or anyone. We are here to change everything and everyone by the way we use the energy that's within our powers to create. This inherent power that we talk about is energy itself. And if we are energy, and we are, then the energy that we use to create is us. So if we make efforts to be destructive or to be superior, then the energy that we are molding is our own energy. And we become what we desire others to walk away from. We can't do that. We can't talk about being superior to a church. Neither can we talk about being superior to a government or a group of people. No, we are not. We are creators. And creators do not create attitudes of superiority. Creators bring into existence balance. And that creative balance begins to show that superior attitude that it is one with everything that exists. So there is no such thing as superiority. It is harmony that we seek to recognize, that we seek to bring into existence. And the only way we can do that, bring harmony into existence, is to be in harmony with ourselves. And that energy of humility, of being in harmony with everything that is, that energy begins to bleed into others, and they also become humble. But it begins with us. Thank you.
So when you're talking about repurposing energy, then the word we thought about in the past is transform, and transform means to change something, to change it. And I looked it up a minute ago, and it implies a major change in form, in nature, or function. And so when we repurpose energy, we change it from its function, particularly of energy that's negative or energy that's challenging or struggling. We purpose that, and you change its function into something other than what it is. In other words, the function changes so that it can be used to benefit humanity. So transforming is, in essence, to me, similar to what you mean when you say repurpose the energy. You change its function.
Absolutely. See, Barbara Jane, I see energy as being a neutral substance. And how we impact it determines the direction that it will carry us in. Keep in mind that energy is not traveling alone. It carries us with it based upon our desires. So that neutral substance becomes whatever our desires are. No different than the desires of the wealthy to become more wealthy and to hell with everyone else except them. Our energy, our desire to deal with that was not energy to destroy those who think like that, but to open the eyes of everyone to see that. We did not simply say we're going to open the eyes of the ones who are suffering as a result of their greed. No, our desire was to bring balance regardless of how it comes. And as a result of that, what do we see? We see that those who have suffered at the hands of those others who have used humanity to enrich themselves now are beginning to rise up and say, without using the words, but through their actions, I am created to bring balance to this earth, without even knowing what they are doing. When I talked at the onset about the unions, what they're actually doing is bringing balance to the world of labor. That's their goal. That's their desire. Where did it come from? It came from the one yet many. So we are in a better place than we've ever been, and we are functioning in this eighth sense. What we have done, we have thrown off the blinders. We have actually brought down the walls of Jericho, so that the eighth sense that's always been available to us has been embraced by us simply by our desire. And when we think that, we're going to see that the eighth sense is going to enable us to see what's coming. It does in some instances, but it also enables us to see what's already here. And in order to see what's already here, we must have a sense of interpretation. We must be able to interpret what we are seeing as opposed to judging it. We must be able to interpret what is it truly saying when the African woman is on the highest court in the world. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the world simply because America controls the world. And the Supreme Court is the last voice in what happens in this nation. So that means it's the last voice of what happens globally. So when we see the African womb being put in that position, realizing that all life came from the womb of an African. Rebirth comes from that womb. And when we see these things, this is an interpretation of that the eighth sense gives to us or allows us to see. So we must not miss it, not just see this as there. Here we go again. I wonder if this will work. No. It's stable because of our stability. It functions properly because our functionality. It is a African seed that kicked off the organizing of a union in one of the strongest anti-union places on the face of the earth, Amazon. This movement did not start in an easy place. It started in a difficult place. And now it's moving into the easier places. When you are able to decapitate the giant, it is not difficult to decapitate those that follow the giant, those who follow the giant. So all of these others now are beginning to capitulate to what the struggle was with this young man who did what he did in spite of the labeling that they attempted to label him with. That's what we are seeing with the eighth sense functioning, Elohim functioning, eighth sense, interpreting the signs of the time. And the interpretation of the signs of the time is not always what is bad or what is the war, what war we're fighting. It is also progress. It is also change. And keep in mind that the platform for what we are experiencing in terms of change now got its strength, got its legs under it from the election that saw the largest number of females entering governmental positions, entering Congress than ever before in the history of this nation. The election of 18 is the platform that strengthened, that gave emphasis to our desires for change in this earth. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a pretty, good, I guess, description of everything that you just, like you said it all today, and you spun around, you said it again in a different way, and it still kind of points back to the same thing about us being able to expand our awareness and taking the blinders off so we can see peripherally and just be more aware of everything that's going on around us. And that eighth sense allows us to, put this in a position and see that and to use that and to build it up. Thanks and all these things that it affects, and it helps our creation, it helps our identity, it helps, just the fact of just being able to not miss something, or just how many times we walked by something that we weren't aware of it. It was right there, but because the tunnel vision was in place, we didn't see it. But now it's like blinders is off, and we can totally see in our peripheral and still see that expansion that you were talking about earlier. I appreciate that. And anyone else with any comments or questions there? I do think that's a good place to kind of put a pin in it and to really absorb it, because I think a lot of it was this. A lot became, I don't know about anybody else, but a lot became clear for me today, and it's just the clarity was the thing that just kind of opened this up for me today. And but I think it's a good place to put a pin. And if anyone's got any questions or comments, please state them or say them before we conclude today.
Thank you, Russ.
No, I appreciate you there, but I don't know what it is, but I hope everybody feels the same. Like Evelyn said earlier, it's like a certain amount of clarity that just kind of took place today, and it's kind of like just more was deposited into us. And I think even from the last couple of weeks, it just seems like the reality of it and the clarity of it's kind of just being deposited into us. So I appreciate it.
All right, sir. We
Thank
appreciate you.
We'll reconvene tomorrow. Appreciate everyone on the call.
Tomorrow at 11. We'll see you then. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a
Bye,
great day,
y'all.
guys.
Have a good day.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good week.